Welcome in to Star Wars Newsnet Live. It's Thursday night, 10 o'clock Eastern Time once again. And boy, do we have a show for you this evening. I say this every week, so people probably don't take me seriously. But I'm going to say it again. I am pumped to talk about Star Wars today. Like, I am ready to go, energized, rejuvenated. I don't know, whatever the word is, because I feel like in my heart and soul, in my bones, guys, that this could be just a really big win for Star Wars that they need this weekend. Like, I really do believe that that is a possibility, that that's an outcome from D23. Now, that doesn't mean they're going to knock it out of the park. It doesn't mean that that's going to happen, but I have a feeling that it could. And we're going to get into all that. Welcome in, everyone. My name is Tyler, joined, as always, by Luke. And no Jay this week, but we have our good friend Miguel from across the globe. Miguel, how are we doing? Hanging in there? I know it's super late for you.
You sound like very inspired by the Olympics, by the Olympic spirit of getting pumped up for a victory.
The spirit of the games has just gotten me. I mean, I watched, my roommate works from home and he's in a meeting right next to where I'm watching USA basketball, and I'm having to summon all of my self-control not to just be yelling, profanity and profane word after another after they are just absolutely blowing it. But then they just start coming back and I'm like screaming internally, jumping up and down. And as soon as he said, "All right, sounds good, we'll see you next week," and I heard the laptop close, I just let out like a visceral roar of triumph, because it was right around when the US roared back to tie the game. So we have USA gold medal soccer match coming up Saturday, gold medal match or gold medal game for basketball. The women's team plays tomorrow. I love watching all the track and field. I'm just excited about life right now. There's just a lot to be excited for. It's a good time to be alive. Luke, how are you doing?
Hey, I am doing really well tonight. You're our rogue leader here. So I mean, if you're pumped up, I'm pumped up. I'm with you, dude.
Let's go. I mean, let's do this thing.
I haven't had the chance to actually watch the Olympics. I've been keeping up decently without having viewed a lot of stuff. So I'm also pretty excited that the USA is performing pretty well. I was pretty pumped up about the men's 1500 meter. We were not supposed to do that well, but Cole Hawker really pulled out a great finish there. So that made me really happy.
So I'm like one of those people that's constantly, like, internally and to like my close friends, and like Luke probably knows this, talking like, man, the state of the United States just sucks. So much of the US sucks. And like, if you follow anyone who follows our politics for the last, you just know it just sucks. And but then once I hear that Olympic music and I turn on NBC and see Mike Tirico like walk me into whatever event we're doing, all of a sudden I'm like that meme, like, USA, like, let's go. And I'm all of a sudden just really hyped up, ready to go. Almost as hyped up as I am to talk about Star Wars tonight. So we have a few things we're going to talk about, and then we're going to get into all of our D23 predictions. So I kind of have those segmented off a little bit in the what we know is going to happen for tomorrow's panel, what we kind of think we know is going to happen, and some of that's, a little speculation, but I feel like pretty confident speculation. And then I have what I personally want to see. So I want to know what you personally would like to see. And then I just wrote bold upon bold upon bold, which is the things that in my heart of hearts I want to happen, but I know deep down will probably never come to pass. So I'm really excited to get your guys' thoughts on D23. But first, we have two topics for just to throw out there and talk about for a moment. I want to throw this to Miguel first, because I think Miguel is the most in the know when it comes to some of these things. And that would be Disney, turned a profit this past quarter in streaming for the first time. And you wrote on Star Wars Newsnet how Iger has been, targeting Q4 2024 for years as the time when Disney would finally turn that profit in streaming. And they happened to hit that mark a quarter early. And you hit on the fact that there aren't a lot of big, there weren't a lot of big titles or big things rolling out for their platforms necessarily. So I want to know from you, just what does that mean maybe going forward? Is there anything really encouraging we should take away from that? Anything incredibly noteworthy that they're hitting that mark earlier than expected? And is this like a trend we could see continue? Like, is Disney going to continue to be profitable from streaming and onward and upward?
So it's a loaded question for
It's a loaded
starters.
question.
Yeah, it is. So okay, let's go back.
But that's
So
why I
Iger-
hand you those questions, because I know
Yeah.
you can handle the meaty, intense ones.
So Iger has been saying that. So first of all, just to clarify, Disney ends its fiscal year in September, which means that we are now in Q4 of their fiscal year, which means that they just reported Q3 numbers. So they've been targeting this Q4 2024 goal for their profit, for turning a profit in streaming for like years, like ever since, not since they started, but almost like pretty much 2020, which is significant because like in for this business, this was like decades ago. Like so much has changed since then. Particularly, well, two things. One is that they are now bundling Hulu with ESPN Plus and Disney Plus. They are also folding Hulu into Disney Plus, which means a lot for this streaming business that Disney has going on. But also they have advertising now, which is probably the main reason why they were able to turn a profit now, because the subscriber numbers were up this quarter, but not by a lot. Like it was like 200,000 subscribers that they added. So it's basically plateauing right now, which is also a reason why. And I actually forgot to write this into the piece, and it's actually quite important. They're raising prices now. By October they're gonna raise prices by $2 in the US, and basically the feeling is that the subscriber base is here for the long term. So they're just plateauing in terms of subscriber numbers. They are turning a profit because the average revenue per user, which means that the money they're making on per user, which means advertising, basically, because there are different tiers, pricing tiers, and advertising kind of levels the playing field. Basically, taking all of this into account, they're basically reaching a point where they are just not adding a lot of, or seeing a lot of churn out of their subscriber base, and thus they're able to raise prices and turn a profit. With that in mind, will we be seeing these numbers again next quarter? Probably yes. So I should also mention that the profit margins were like really low. Were like $50 million in the green, and also the vast majority of it came from ESPN Plus. Actually, not even Disney Plus. Again, Disney Plus is still operating on its own at a loss, but they will come around very soon.
Do you think that so I also saw that in September they plan to crack down more on like the password sharing across, friends and family and all the password sharing. And we know that Netflix, started doing that. I believe it's like last year that Netflix, or earlier this year or last year, that Netflix really started cracking down on that. Do you think that will increase, the revenue coming in because people don't want to lose their Disney Plus subscriptions, so they're just going to go ahead and get their own if they've been, sharing with, someone from another state, country, whatever?
So yes, this was a huge reason for Netflix's rebound from that 2022 like terrible quarter where they just the the shares tanked, and basically they were like at the bottom of the barrel. But now they're rebounding, basically thanks to two factors. One was advertising, and the other one was the password crackdown. I think Disney has been saying they will be doing this for so long, and I've actually received a couple of emails at least saying they will be cracking down on this, but they haven't really implemented it yet. And I wonder, like, this is where maybe you can just chime in and tell me what you think. But do you think that maybe this is because Disney Plus basically operates like a family operation? So if you start like breaking up the family, and I know like this applies for like 12-year-olds or 7-year-olds, but maybe they're afraid that they're gonna lose some subscribers because like people are not that interested in having Disney Plus, or rather on paying for Disney Plus. Maybe if your parents pay for it, that's fine, but maybe you wouldn't pay on your own for it. Like, what do you think? Like, is that a factor that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
What do you think? What do you think, Luke? Like when in terms of like Disney Plus and what you're paying for it? Because personally, like I think that it's similar to like other platforms. You know, I share like I have my Paramount Plus account I share with my dad, and the Peacock, you know, account that he shares with me. And it's like we have like that with my cousin. It's like this little, you know, we have all the family password sharing. And I know that a lot of people do that, but I don't know how prevalent that is because, you know, I don't have kids. Like maybe if I had, you know, kids, I would be like, okay, we're just going to keep it in the family because I don't want, you know, someone else starting a profile, watching something that I don't want my kid to be watching right now and slip over to that profile. I don't know what that looks like. Luke, what do you make of all of this? And then we'll move on and get on to some more like juicier things.
Well, it's perfect that Miguel is on this show for this topic because, I mean, that's your guy right there, the out of universe, behind the scenes guy. And I am definitely an in universe type of guy. So, my take on this whole thing is, you know, I think we've all probably experienced this like password sharing crackdown kind of feeling. So, I had access to a Netflix account at one point for quite a while, and then the crackdown happened, and I no longer had access to it, and I just never even went out and got my own. So like I am wondering, that's just my personal story on it. So I'm wondering how much that would happen to people who currently have access to a Disney Plus account and then would get bumped out and not feel the need to go get it, because there's like two things I use for Disney Plus for, and that's Star Wars everything. I watch everything Star Wars on there. I love this. And I dabble in Marvel. And really outside of those two things, I don't really like explore the depths of Disney Plus.
I mean, what else does Disney Plus really have to offer outside of those two things other than the classics that, you know, have been like that you just go back to watch, like the classics that you're watching in terms of like original content? And because so,
we round around to those, like we come around to those like original ones from like, you know, the Aristocats or something like, you know, from like the 60s, 70s, 80s that once a year we like maybe hit up 2 or 3 of those. And it's like, if I didn't have Disney Plus, I just simply wouldn't do that and I'd be fine. So I do wonder if they're going to maybe struggle more than profit from cracking down too hard on passwords.
I was sharing Netflix, and then when Netflix cracked down, I was just like, there's nothing on Netflix I'm dying to watch until Stranger Things, you know, the final season of Stranger Things comes out at one point.
For the fiance.
Or Bridgerton for Luke's fiance. So, but then, you know, occasionally there are things I really want to watch, and, you know, I might hang out with someone who has Netflix just in order to watch it. But I don't think, like, outside of Paramount Plus and Disney Plus, there's really nothing that I would subscribe to no matter what 24/7. I'm one of the 55 to 65 and up age people that do subscribe to Paramount Plus strictly for reality TV and the Star Trek content. That's all I watch that every single day. So my Survivor, which I am I am like almost done with my Survivor audition tape for this fall. So I'm making the final tweaks on it,
I hope I get to see it.
and maybe I'll put it onto the Star Wars Newsnet. Like I can put it on the YouTube channel at some point and get some feedback for this year's Survivor audition tape, because I'm feeling pretty good about this one. Not gonna lie, I think this is the best one I've ever done. This is gonna be the year. And when I disappear for a few months, like next year, you'll know why. Anyway, so let's move on. I don't want to talk about this too long, but it is worth noting because I think this, outside of what might happen at D23 tomorrow, like as an in-universe thing, that's going to be the biggest story. But in terms of just Star Wars related news, this might have been the biggest thing that we've had this week in a while. And Daisy Ridley was on the cover of Women's Health magazine, did an accompanying interview, really just highlighting and detailing many of the personal health issues that she's encountered, both in the recent years, but also over the last really decade. It seems as if she's just had a lot of very serious, even I would guess traumatic, medical problems. And I don't want to spend, like I said, too long on this. If you're really interested in hearing what she has to say, like go read that article for the magazine, or we touched on it a little bit at Star Wars Newsnet. You guys can piggyback off of this if you'd like, but I just wanted to say that I feel like for our group here and for Star Wars fans around, we just want to send out like those like good thoughts and vibes to Daisy, and hope that she can continue to push through all of these difficulties and the strife. And I told Luke before the show, I was like, women are just badasses. Like, I don't know how she's been able to perform in some of these really physical roles too, while undergoing like this intense medical, trauma. And I was watching The Force Awakens literally last night, just because I was wanting some good sequel vibes, and was watching that knowing that there are, some problems that she's probably going through while filming that she doesn't even know about, and the others that she does. I was like a little bit emotional because I think that she delivers such a beautiful portrayal of her character, and she puts her spirit and soul into it. I think that comes out in the other projects she does and the other interviews that she does. And I think we're just so blessed to have someone like Daisy want to come back to Star Wars despite, this medical, problems that she's going through and backlash from darker parts of the fandom, strictly for being a woman in a lead role in Star Wars. And so I just want to say just how I think blessed that we are to have her, willing to come back for a big movie, and how excited I am to see her next iteration of that character. And like I said, if you're interested in reading more about what she had to say and what she's going through, go check out those articles, Women's Health magazine, and we put a little bit on Star Wars Newsnet as well. And you guys can piggyback off of that if you'd like, and if not, we can just keep moving on.
For sure. I will reiterate it again, we are so blessed to have Daisy Ridley in this franchise. She did a great job with Rey. I love her. I love Daisy Ridley. She's so sweet, such a kind, good person. She's always the best in interviews, and therefore I love Rey. I love her portrayal of Rey. And it gives me just so much more respect seeing all the, like, finally hearing all these hardships that she's gone through. And I cannot fathom the pain she has felt in the past few years, but I do have a fiance who goes through maybe some similar kind of things in her life, and so I can kind of understand like the hardships that these women go through, and it's not their fault. Their bodies are just doing this thing. And so I just have the utmost respect for her to be able to put on a brave face and also just receive the worst backlash from horrible people online. So I mean, she's I don't know how I could respect her even more. She's so wonderful. She's put on such a brave face through all of this. And it's honestly so brave to even come out and talk about it now, when it's relevant now. So also,
and hopefully we see her come out for some D23, but we'll get into that.
Exactly.
Get some Rey stuff. That'd be awesome.
I will say she did a photo shoot for this as well, and she looked stunning. She looked beautiful. So I mean, for someone to be in so much pain and yet still look just like the absolute peak of beauty. Like she's like an angel. She's amazing. Like I love her.
Miguel, have the final word, then we'll move on to D23.
Yeah, not much to add here. Just I'm not sure if you mentioned it, but just to clarify, she revealed that she's suffering from Graves' disease, which is kind of a big deal, and could explain some of her disorders, health disorders that she suffered a few years ago that she thought were due to stress, and maybe wasn't entirely due to stress. But whatever, I just hope that she is able to get the best care that she can get, and she is able to go through it, acting or not acting, just as a human being.
No, I always love it when fans can rally around like an actor in Star Wars, and here we have just Daisy, and then Rey is great, love that. Also, Travis is mayor of Kingstown on Paramount Plus. Was that what you were referring to? Oh, that is Miguel. Okay, perfect. I can have something. I can change up the rotation every once in a while. On Paramount Plus.
It's good.
It's good. Okay.
Yeah.
I like Jeremy Renner. How do you not like Jeremy Renner? Talk about a guy with a crazy story over the last couple of years with his accidents. So let's get into it. We have the main event of this week in the in-world Star Wars universe, and that is D23. Panel is tomorrow night, and I'm going to try to withhold some of the more bold, like kind of things that are coming out of my soul, but I'm not going to be able to. Just disclaimer, that's not going to happen. So let's go ahead. We're going to start with the things that we know are going to happen. Like we are 100% sure we're going to see this, and that's we're going to get probably skeleton crew. We're going to probably have maybe a director or two be on a panel. We're going to have the skeleton crew trailer that drops tomorrow to get a look at that. What are your guys' just initial thoughts on getting probably the bulk of the Lucasfilm portion of this 2-hour panel is mostly probably going to involve skeleton crew. How do you guys feel about that? I'll throw that to you first, Luke. What do you like? Where are you feeling on that?
I'm pretty excited. We talked a little bit about skeleton crew, maybe a lot of bit about skeleton crew last week. And so as we get more info for it, I think that easily helps me personally get much more excited about it. And that's kind of been the par for the course as far as shows go. I didn't know anything about Solo or Andor, and so I wasn't really hyped for those. And then we start getting more info, we start getting more looks at it, and I start feeling like, you know what, this is looking to be good. So I get more excited for it. So I'm ready for that train to roll around for skeleton crew, and I'm ready to be excited for it. So I feel like I'm in a good spot for it. I'm excited for the trailer that's coming tomorrow.
And I saw I think they're going to make sure they emphasize that this is within the world of The Mandalorian. Like, I think they're going to try to use that, to get some interest in. Miguel, do you think there's any chance that Mando pops up in this series at all?
Yes. I was actually going to predict something to that extent, that I think they're going to mention tomorrow some connection to the Mando series or Mando universe. Whether that is, Katie Sackhoff is in the show, and that doesn't even mean that she's going to be a co-protagonist or anything. Like maybe she pops up in an episode, but I think they might want to and also have to announce some of these larger universe stuff just to get some of the excitement going. Because I'm going to be the negative one. I don't really care about the show as of now. Maybe I will change my mind tomorrow, but as of now, I don't really care for it. And I think I am not alone on this. Maybe I'm alone on this live stream, but not necessarily.
I don't think you are, because in terms of, I guess, there's difference between I don't care and I'm not like jumping up and down, excited.
To clarify, I'm ready to be excited for it. That doesn't mean like currently I am.
I am excited from the standpoint of I just love the fact that I know when Star Wars is coming back, and I can look at that trailer and be like, okay, I'm going to be able to, watch some, Star Wars in the future. I can visualize what that's going to look like and excited from that standpoint. It's not like where I was, in January, where I was just scratching and clawing for any Acolyte buzz I could find, because I was really looking forward to a High Republic show. It's definitely like varies in terms of what excitement is, I guess.
Yeah,
and yeah.
I mean, I think that I don't know that they're going to bring directors, but I do think that they will have John Watts, well, who is technically a director. He's directing a couple of episodes, and maybe Jude Law and maybe the kids, but that depends on their availability, and I'm not quite sure what Jude Law is doing at the moment. I know he was shooting Eden for Ron Howard earlier this year, but that's done and should be coming out in a few months. But it's also too early to be doing promos. I do think he will be there, Jude Law, just because this is like the biggest thing he has going on in the next few months, and they're probably going to do some post-panel or pre-panel interviews with the press that will be published a couple of months after, like a couple of months from now. So yeah, I do think he will be there. Probably the kids as well. I don't think that. Well, maybe this. I think this will be the opening of the panel, of the section of the panel for Lucasfilm. I don't know that they will be like the main. What takes the longest.
I hope
maybe
that
so. Maybe
I
so,
think they're gonna lead with this, but I hope that the buzz from this panel is not, hey, we got to look at the Skeleton Crew trailer. That's what I really am hoping for.
What I meant to say is that I don't think this is going to cover 80% of the panel. I do think that maybe 40 to 50.
Okay, that makes sense. We have Salvador wanting to hear more about Asajj. I have some Asajj predictions here coming up in a moment, so stay tuned for that. I am definitely ready for some Asajj Ventress. So here's what I think we know is going to happen, and these are not necessarily like we 100% know that we're going to get these announcements or get something, but just reading the tea leaves and looking ahead to what maybe Disney would like to get, or Lucasfilm would like to get a win on. There's a few things that make sense. We don't have to spend a lot of time on this one, but if they've said Tales of the Jedi Season 2 is happening at some point this like year, and that feels like a fall type of release to me. And so I have a feeling we're going to get the trailer for Tales of the Jedi Season 2 released, or at least a date of when it's going to come out. To me, that's like an easy thing that you can drop and it doesn't take up much time. It comes and goes, and the people that are going to get excited for that are going to find a way to get excited for that. Do you feel like one way on that, Luke? Like either way there with Tales of the Jedi?
Yeah, I'm a big fan of what they've done with that show, and so I'd be pretty excited to see a season 2 trailer, and it would make sense that it would be a fall time release, because we could get that show. It could kind of have its time, and then by the time it dies off, we're ready for Skeleton Crew, and it's not overlapping, it's not stealing from, and that's not necessarily been a problem in the past. We've had dual releases with Bad Batch and Mando, so I mean, it's not unheard of that they would put them closer together, but I think it would make a lot of sense to have this show release maybe October. And they do often, I think every time they've done a complete series release, not a single episode by episode, week by week thing. So it's going to have its moment, and we will be ready for the next thing, which is Skeleton Crew. So I think it's going to be
the Tales
a
of
nice
typically they just drop it,
Just drop
and
it.
it exists, and you can watch that, binge it over the weekend if you want, kind of thing. Miguel, do you feel Tales of the Jedi Season 2 something, if it's going to happen this year, that feels like now would be probably the time to hint at that?
I do think that this is going to mirror 2022, where they had the trailer and I think date announcement as well at D23, which at the time happened in September. Now it's August, whatever. But I think it makes sense. And I also think that they might drop it at the similar date as they did last time, which was end of October, I think October 26th. Maybe this year at a similar date. I think makes sense for all the reasons you said. Skeleton Crew, whatever, and also Agatha, which drops mid-September.
Right.
They also will that. I mean, that runs for 9 episodes, so that they will be busy until the end of October, beginning of November. So around that time, checks out for Star Wars to pump some excitement into Disney Plus.
I don't want to spend too much time on this comment from Travis, but Luke, you have rapid fire, 10 seconds. Give me 3 Jedi for Tales of the Jedi season 2 that you want to see.
I think it makes sense for Quinlan Voss. They might do like an Obi-Wan Kenobi post Revenge of the Sith. And Yariel Poof.
That would be insane. I'll give 3 that I really like. I would actually want, like, I want to see that I think would be really cool. That I bet are in the works. Dang it, John Pedro. I was gonna say Master Soul. I think they might do like an animated like Acolyte because they've had that and they want to continue on that. I would go Anakin and Obi-Wan. When Anakin's an apprentice, I think that would be
between episode 1 and 2.
We have between episode 1 and 2. I think that would be a fun area to explore, do an arc there. And I think Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan as well. I think they're gonna dip their toes into those 2. And then I was gonna say I think we might get like an Acolyte something just from that time. But I think the Anakin in the Qui-Gon, I think the prequel type ish era, I think we're gonna see that. I would love to see a sequel, but era or High Republic, but I don't think so. Miguel, do you have any Jedi?
Yeah, Balin's Skull.
Balin's, oh, he's so good. Yes. Oh, Balin, yes, 100%. Next on the list of.
Oh, by the way, before we move on to from animation, like it makes sense that they're gonna have some animation news because they also have their own panel for Star Wars animation. So it just makes sense that on either day they're gonna say something about animation, whether that is a future series, whether that is just Tales of the Jedi.
Is the animation panel on Friday or is that on Saturday?
No, I think that's Sunday, but I'm not sure.
Okay.
Don't quote me on that. I don't think it's Friday.
Okay, because that was the next thing that I had marked down was this weekend. We will have the new main animated title, the flagship animated show will be announced. Like you wrote on your piece on Sunday, and we've been talking about this for a while, that the Bad Batch has been carrying that flag, carrying that torch for a while. I think we get the new one. Luke and I did a podcast a couple weeks ago on our predictions for what that show would be. I am going to come out and say that I think we're going to get Asajj Ventress and the Path, and that's going to be the new kind of show that they do. They introduced her. They've hinted at some of that, and I think that we're going to get the Asajj Ventress show. And like as Oscar just put in the chat, I think Quinlan Voss is going to show up in this show. Of course, she couldn't interact with a handful of other like survivors around this time. I think it could be a way to introduce like someone like Cal Kestis into animation. You could, which for the video game people, I think would be exciting. And this doesn't have to be a really long, drawn out show. This can just be like a couple seasons, similar like the Bad Batch. We just had a few seasons of that. But that's my prediction. I'm okay with a lot of different things, so I'm not going to be upset if I'm wrong there. My heart would say Luke and Ben Solo, like Luke Jedi or New Jedi Order type thing in the sequel era. But I don't think they're brave enough to go that route. Miguel, you agree, right, that you think they're going to announce a new flagship show for animation?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yes, mostly because they've been building this new era of the animation division. Like after Filoni left, they've been like championing, Brad Rao, Jen Corbett, Athena Yvette Portillo, like these people who have been working on Bad Batch and they're very passionate about Star Wars. Like they're not going away, so they need something to actually work on 24/7, not Tales of whatever shows. Like, and I do think that they are going to let them run away with whatever idea they are in love with, which I don't think it's going to involve any Clone Wars era. I do think that they might like I do keep going back to the Luke post Return of the Jedi era. Like I think that that's ripe for a fresh story in animation. Uh, I don't want to put it too out there, but Mark Hamill voicing Luke in this era would make sense. He's a voice actor and he's also like very attached to this character and clearly wants to do right by his previous self, and I think that makes sense. Maybe something High Republic, but I'm not quite sure about that one. Like,
that's number one on Luke and I's wish list. And from that
Yeah.
podcast we did a few weeks ago was a Luke rebuilding the Jedi Order, seeing that rise and fall with Ben. That's number one on our wish list. Luke, give me your animation prediction for this weekend. What show, assuming they announce the new show, put your prediction out there. What is the new show going to be? And we're gonna hold you to this. Like, if you're wrong, like, you're done. Like, we're never podcasting again about Star Wars. That's how big the
That's
stakes are.
just only fair. I mean, I would actually want that. The new flagship show is going to be something fantastic, and that's going to be Gunji on Kashyyyk. He's
Shut
been
up.
united with his people. Great question. I'm
Muted.
Not really
No, I'm
sure.
just kidding.
I'm a
That
huge
would
fan
be-
of Star Wars animation, so I mean, unfortunately, it's very boring of me to say, but I'm going to be a pretty big fan of whatever it is. They've earned my trust with Clone Wars, Resistance, Rebels.
They dropped Tales
Val-
of the Gungan. They dropped Tales of the Gungans, and Luke's.
See,
gonna
that
be
was
all in for
yours. Tales of the Banking
Gungans.
Clan was mine.
That's right. Tales of the Banking Clan. Miguel, you said this in your Sunday piece, and I could not have agreed more. And it was, if there was going to be like a surefire big win in the streaming world, essentially for Lucasfilm, or that they could drop here, it would be something Andor season 2, whether it's a behind the scenes look or a little sizzle reel of season 2 and the behind the scenes. They've already shown that at like a Star Wars, I believe, was it Star Wars Celebration last year or whatever, of season 2 of Andor. So they have something that's available, and the show is going to come out, early-ish, maybe mid 2025. Do you think, even though we're 6, maybe 7 months out from the start of Andor season 2, do you think it's possible that we get a little, something? I feel like we're going to get a little something, or at least the people that are there are going to get a little something.
I don't think we will. I think that those people might. Yeah, again, like they do have a trailer cut together that they showed twice at Celebration. I saw it, and like I don't think that many of the people that were in London are gonna be in Anaheim tomorrow. So there's like some goodwill that could be carried over out of that panel. I think it's too early to start saying, like, putting the word out there that this is what we're doing in season 2, but maybe some news headlines can do that work for them. What do I mean by that? I if they do something on Andor, I do think that they will say something like coming next May or coming, next April. When will the show come out? So I'm thinking after Daredevil next year, which is Daredevil is March. And Disney does like to do this, at least one big show every quarter, so that they can advertising in their earnings calls. January, February, March is their Daredevil quarter. So Andor would be their Q3 for them. And maybe they have to also add something Marvel, because Andor numbers are not that high. Although I do expect them
like
to be
April, May, then perhaps for.
Like I keep going back to a premiere during Celebration, which is April 18th to the 20th.
That makes sense.
It makes sense to maybe either start that week or start the week after, but show the first episode to the people in the room early. like I think that makes perfect sense. And
I
if
would love to
they,
see something though. Like even if it's not us, we're like at least know. I just feel as if on the heels of the Acolyte, they need, especially given the at San Diego Comic-Con, Star Wars was there really wasn't the big presence of Star Wars news at San Diego Comic-Con. I feel like that had to have been intentional given the massive slate that they have upcoming. And they may not have a lot to show for some of those things, but they should have some substantive things to say about them at this point with some of these. So I
I
feel
mean,
like they need to go hit hard on some of these, especially just given frankly a lot of the bad press that's happened since the Acolyte.
I mean, first of all, Comic Con, Star Wars has never done Comic Con. Like they did Force Awakens 10 years ago, and that was like a sizzle reel. They didn't even do last year. They did, no, sorry. They didn't do Rogue One because they did Celebration in July that year. But they didn't do last year. They didn't do Episode 9. Like they never do Comic Con, at least a big panel. So that's out of the way. And yes, maybe there's like it's time for an announcement, a big announcement of sorts, and they do have a few projects that they're working on, but I don't see why they would focus on this now instead of waiting 6 months for Celebration.
Right. I don't think that necessarily Andor is going to be that. It just feels like an easy win to at least have in the banks. Like what's a 30-second sizzle reel of season 2 really going to cost you, like other than just people being like, yo, yeah, that's right. And I don't know. I just feel like that's an easy, hey, we got them. We won that. People are going to get it. That's something everyone will pretty much get excited about. Luke, are you hopeful for anything Andor related, or is that on the back burner in terms of things you might be more interested in to see?
I'm hopeful for that. I really enjoyed season 1, so I'm itching to get season 2, and so yeah, I would absolutely take it. I really want some news that tells me this is close to being finished. We have a release date for you. We have a release window for you. Maybe here's, you know, Cassian Andor himself, or someone, Hadrian Arhone, like comes up on stage. It'd be kind of cool to have at least someone from the show, just to have a little bit of like, hey, remember this show, like it's coming back. Like I would love to have something a little bit more intentional and a little bigger show out for season 2, because it's supposed to be the final season. So
yeah,
let's get hyped for it.
I can't wait. It's going to be so good. So here are two things. This is what I want to see. One, I think is extremely possible, and I really want to get your guys' thoughts on if you think this is going to happen. I think this is going to happen. The second one is the thing I want to happen most that I don't think is like going to happen, but I would probably get emotional if this happened. We'll start with the first one. Is I think there's a really good chance this happens, and I think we're going to get a really like a better look at the cast for the Mandalorian and Grogu movie. I think that I would not be surprised if one, like Katie Sackhoff is there. They formally announced that Sigourney Weaver is there. But I also think that there is a really good chance. I mean, this thing starts shooting if it hasn't started shooting a lot already, and Miguel can chime in on that in a second because he's more in tune on the production schedules. I think that they will announce who is the villain of this movie? Maybe what is Mando going up against, or who, and announce like bring out if Thrawn is going to be a presence in this movie and it's going to have an overarching effect on everything. Does Lars Mikkelsen come out for a moment, or do they show him on the screen like this is who Mando may be going up against, and it could lead into Dave Filoni's movie? I think that having that antagonist out there, and as long as it's not Juan Carlos Esposito as Moff Gideon for the 10th time, I think everyone would be really excited to maybe just, I think obviously Celebration next year is when we're going to get, our trailer and our first look at a lot of the movie, because of course they have a lot of work to do. But at this point, they got that cast like figured out. Like I would love to be able to see like who are we working with here, what what are some of the things we can expect? And to me, the villain makes the most sense outside of, Katie Sackhoff and Sigourney Weaver. But Miguel, what did you think about that idea? I know you mentioned Weaver and Sackhoff in your article you wrote about D23, but quickly chime in on like what you think that the production timeline looks like for this right now, and then also could we get a look at like the villain for this cast?
I mean, in terms of the villain, I wonder if Sigourney Weaver is playing her.
It's possible.
Yeah, like This doesn't feel like a movie where you bring Thrawn in. This feels like an episode of Mandalorian extended for 2 hours that maybe compresses a bigger storyline, but it's basically, or rather, maybe a season that it's compressed into 2 hours. This doesn't feel like huge. It's more like an announcement of Star Wars is back in theaters. This is what it feels like to me. So this is why someone like Sigourney Weaver playing a villain makes sense, because she doesn't strike me as the kind of actress you hire for a supporting role that isn't like really like Katie Sackhoff would be the supporting role. Like she would be the supporting roles to a supporting role. So she feels more like a villain kind of presence to me. Just judging from like out of context entirely. In terms of the production timeline, I don't think they haven't started like principal photography proper, but I do think they will say that we're starting on Monday. We're starting on next the Monday after this one. Like I do think they will say something to that effect, and yeah, because they're supposed to start so soon. I think the main cast will be in LA, so they might get them out on stage and say, here's I don't know, whoever from the Mandalorian, like maybe Pedro Pascal FaceTime scene, something. Okay. Well, no, probably not, because it's gonna be like 3 a.m. in London.
Yeah, I was like, he's on the other. He's in London, right?
Yeah, he's right now. Like, so he's in London. He can't be there, but precisely because it's so late here or in London, like
it's late. You're chiming in on the live stream, and it's like 3 a.m. where you're at. So why can't Pedro Pascal do that? Because his paycheck is a lot larger than yours, probably.
Maybe he pre-records a video. I don't
know. that might happen. Luke, do you want to see the villain for this? Do you think it's Sigourney Weaver? I've long said I don't want Thrawn to be connected to this. I want this to feel kind of like a smaller, contained Mando and Grogu story that is similar to what you said, Miguel. But if the villain is going to be announced, it could be a perfect time to do it here at D23. What do you think, Luke?
Yeah, I myself was going to bring it up if it didn't get brought up by now, but I was wondering if Sigourney Weaver was going to be the villain. I don't think she has to be or necessarily can be. I think she might work well in that role, but regardless of whoever is playing the villain, I would like the villain to be not Thrawn, and I would like it to be a new character that we haven't seen before, or maybe lightly hinted at somewhere, but I would like it to be mainly a new character to the universe. And yeah, I think it's kind of what I'm expecting too from it, Miguel. Like maybe a season that's been compressed into 2 hours, maybe it's kind of like an extended episode of Mando for 2 hours. So this isn't going to be like the greatest thing humanity's ever produced, but it's going to be Star Wars is back in theaters. Get excited because we've got bigger movies and better movies coming. So it's kind of how I'm viewing it. And I do think the villain is what really makes a story compelling. Look at Marky and Rowe and what he's done for the High Republic. So I want a good villain for this.
I tell you what, when we first started talking about this movie, when it was announced several months ago, I was like, all right, whatever. Like every single day that passes, and I am getting more excited just to watch Star Wars in theaters again. And I really think that, and Miguel said this, I think it was 3 or 4 months ago. And every day that passes, just anecdotally from like my perspective, I think he has proven more and more right. in that the 2026 timeline of May is just the perfect amount of time we've been without Mandalorian and Grogu, to where that even if you did not like season 3, like I wasn't a big fan of season 3, that itch to be back with, maybe our, for a lot of people, that favorite character, and him and Grogu, just being back with those two is going to be so surreal and exciting come 2026, that when I see that trailer next April, it's going to be so exciting to start going to theaters and seeing that come up. So here is what I want to see more than anything else in life tomorrow. And this is not going to happen. And it breaks my heart that this is not going to happen, because it makes me think this will never happen. But I would love nothing more than if like Daisy and John Boyega were both like there and present, and John officially said he was coming back for the New Jedi Order movie. I think that while I do believe that there's a good chance this movie is getting pushed back because of, various things that have happened, I think it would be so easy to say later, like it's getting pushed back a little bit, if you cover it up with John Boyega is back as Finn to, be a Jedi with Rey. And you could even say something like, because of, the schedules of John and Daisy, we had to make things work. And so we're going to push back a few months. It's like, you could easily do that. And I think people would be so freaking excited to have those two on stage together. Or even if it was like John Boyega FaceTime, like he's FaceTiming in on screen, and he's just, or did a pre-recorded video, just something like that to announce that Finn is back. I think that would just be the perfect opportunity. And to me, that's the knock it out of the ballpark win for Star Wars that would get pretty much everyone super excited, especially because he would come out, he's holding the lightsaber. It's got to be blue. And I just get so excited just imagining what it would be like to be in that room for that type of an announcement. Again, like I said before, I don't think that there's any way that happens. And I'm starting to feel like he's not going to be in this movie because we haven't heard about it at this point. And I've kind of been saying for the last few months that if he's going to be in this movie, D23 is the time they're going to announce it, because I feel like next April is too late given where they're going to be in shooting, assuming this is going to happen still 2026. Luke, would you join me in an emotional, teary-eyed, joyful
I'd fly down to you and hug you.
I'm holding you to that.
I'd
I'll be
love to
monitoring
see
the Orlando. I'm monitoring the Indianapolis to Orlando plane ticket prices right now.
I'd love to see those two together, because I like their dynamic in the sequels. So, and I like those two as real people, as John Boyega and Daisy Ridley. And I'd love to see a continuation of Rey training Finn. Personally, my take on what I would want to see that's insane out there is I've read hundreds of comics this year. I've been catching up on everything Star Wars. So I have become a giant fan of Dr. Aphra, and I would like to see Karen Fukuhara cast as Dr. Aphra in her own series post Return of the Jedi. I think her stories are insane.
You're just dropping that out of nowhere. We're over here talking about like and you're just like, by the way, I would love to see this
about Dr. Aphra. Okay.
Turns it back to the comics, which I love. Dr. Aphra is a great character, so you're not gonna see anything. John Bedros saying this. I feel like this is a hot take. I'd rather have Poe than Finn. Like that's sizzling. That's sizzling. But who says why can't we have all three? Why can't we have all three? We can kill Poe off in dramatic fashion at the beginning if Oscar Isaac doesn't want to be a part of Star Wars anymore. Hey, come back for 5 minutes. Like give us 5 minutes, and that can be what sets off everything. But oh my gosh, that would just be great. Miguel, I'm sure you're here to put a damper on all my optimism and hopes for the future, right?
Yeah, I wouldn't hold on to that, honestly. No, but I mean, in all seriousness, a few months ago, I would have said that this was, if they were going to do this was the perfect time, because next April would be too late. I don't think it would be too late now. because they're not going to shoot this movie this year. Like, it's just not happening. Like, they don't have the script ready in, as far as I understand, in a place where they can put it in front of the cameras in a few months.
Right.
Steven Knight, who is writing the script, is going to Birmingham now to shoot the Peaky Blinders movie, so he's going to be busy for a while.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think that he's going to be back writing until beginning of the year or so. So maybe next April is kind of the perfect time.
Okay.
If
So
they're
what
going to
you're
do
actually saying, because you said you were going to come and not tell me not to hold on to that, but what you're actually saying is that hope, like Gandalf when he sees the beacons lit and he says hope is kindled. What you're actually saying is hope is kindled like further into the future than I had held on to prior by saying, maybe in April is actually the perfect time and it's not too late given what's going on.
What I'm saying is that I'm not feeling it for tomorrow.
Hey, as long as you're telling me that means we still have a chance in
There's
April,
hope. Yeah.
Then that's all I'm hearing. What you're saying is that there's hope. Luke, you gave someone goosebumps tonight when you mentioned Dr. Aphra, great character.
Well, Scar, I'm with you.
KG says, asked about perhaps Luke's Jedi Temple for an animated series announcement. We did talk about that. So when we get done with the live stream, if you go back, a few minutes, we did have a whole section on animation. So here we go. We're into the, like I said before, I teased before, the bold upon bold upon bold predictions. These are two things that would just go bonkers if this actually happened. One, I would not actually be surprised if one of this happened. Like, I wouldn't be shocked if the other one happens. My job will hit the floor. Like, I will be just done. Like, I don't know what I'll do. I'll post like a YouTube short afterwards of just me just with my mouth agape for 60 straight seconds. Like, that's what's going to happen. Luke, which one do you want first?
Well, I want to end with that one. So the more tame one first, and we'll end with the wild one.
So I think that it's not out of the realm of possibility that Sean Levy talks about his movie a little bit, and maybe there's a little bit of more details given, just because I personally, and I know Miguel feels this way, didn't love like Deadpool and Wolverine, but clearly that movie is uber popular right now. It's gonna be well over $1 billion at the box office by in a week or two, and Sean Levy's like riding high from this movie. There's a lot of enthusiasm about it. And then there's the, interviews that are populating of how he says he's writing his Star Wars movie, with the actors in mind. And he even went into detail about how he wants it to be, feeling like Star Wars, but it's not going to feel like I'm paraphrasing, like some knockoff of something that we've already seen. Like, he wants it to be fresh and different. And I just wonder, given the success of Mando and, Wolverine and everything, Mando, Wolverine, Deadpool and Wolverine, I am just wondering if like this is the perfect time to capitalize on like that populism or oh my gosh, I can't talk. Miguel, take over. Like, it's the perfect time.
I think there is a higher chance of Sean Levy showing up than there is Daisy Ridley.
Okay.
Yeah. For a couple of reasons. First of all, I mentioned this today in our chat, and I might come off as very cynical here, but I don't think that the dropping of this article by Women's Health was accidental. I think they timed it for this week so they could have an excuse that Daisy is not going to be there, or that the movie is going to be pushed back, or whatever, however you want to phrase it, that this movie is not coming out in 26. I do think that there's a chance that Sean Levy's movie is coming out in 2026, or rather, it's the next one after Mando and Grogu, which supposedly is December 2026. We'll see, but I think there's a chance. However, at the same time, and you mentioned that this interview with Sean Levy, where he said that he's writing with actors in mind, and most people's minds went to Ryan Reynolds or Hugh Jackman. My mind went to most old report that said that Levy's movie was going to involve Rey. So I'm wondering if Daisy is actually going to be in Sean Levy's movie, and that's why he's writing it with actors in mind, because he already knows.
That could be. Oh, that would be wild. I would love to get any sort of tidbits on this if we can. I want to address the comments right now that are up in arms about why we didn't love the movie. Just for me personally, everyone, when it comes to Deadpool and Wolverine, I've never been a big Deadpool fan, just not my cup of tea in the Marvel superhero universe. However, I did go see the movie because I love Hugh Jackman and I love the Wolverine. So I feel like I owed it to him to go see this movie. The opening sequence is pretty hilarious and pretty awesome. After that, you know, I felt this way about like Spider-Man No Way Home. It felt like, you know, when how it had all the big cameos and, you know, all the characters that were returning. I've never really been into those type of movies outside of, you know, when I saw it for the first time, I thought it was all right. I enjoyed it just because I feel like the story isn't necessarily there. And whenever there's these big surprise cameos that pop in, for me personally, I feel like the next time I go watch that, it just kind of diminishes each time because, you know, I'm never going to be surprised by a cameo a second time. I'm never going to, you know, feel that what I felt the first time. But if there's like a really great story that takes place in a movie, and I'm going to be able to go back to that movie over and over and over because of it. Now, I would watch Deadpool and Wolverine again just to see that opening sequence, and then I would probably, you know, find something else to do with my time. I feel like Miguel and I we're on similar wavelengths.
Yeah, basically, like, so I just thought that it was more of a funeral to the 20th century movies than it was an actual proper movie of its own. That the story was a secondary priority to actually, you know, highlighting cameos and integrating them into the narrative, but not necessarily the story, because there wasn't like this very fleshed out story that wasn't just anything other than very generic comic book movie stuff.
But and when it comes to cameos in Star Wars, like I'm all about cameos at certain times. Like for me, a perfect cameo is Luke in season 2 of The Mandalorian coming in at the end. However, I'm also not a fan like Bad Batch season 1 when like Hera comes in for this random arc for her background. It's nice in the moment, but I feel like sometimes the cameos can take away from the main characters you're trying to build around if it's not, you know, building upon the story that you've laid the foundation like for already. And Luke and I know Luke agrees with me a lot on that Bad Batch. We talked about the Bad Batch cameo stuff for a while when it first came out.
Yeah, they kind of the Bad Batch kind of felt like secondary characters in their own series. So, you know, you really have to be careful with cameos. You can't just be whipping them around willy-nilly, which seems to be the case nowadays. So,
and that's probably when you say a little bit like the cameos being like the main point of, you know, Deadpool and Wolverine. That's probably why it didn't resonate necessarily with me.
That's the problem.
As much as it did. But
that's the problem.
Like for people who love that kind of stuff and love the movie, like I am not one of those people. I try to pride myself on not being one of those people that's like, oh, I don't like that. That's trash. Like, don't go watch it. No, my girlfriend absolutely loved that movie. And so I'm like, yeah, if you want to go see it again, like with your friends, go by all means. Like, you know, we can watch it again sometime. That's fine. Like people like what they like. Sean Levy, Luke, any chance you think we're going to get some Sean Levy stuff here? Is that actually something that could make the airwaves?
He will absolutely be there and moderating it himself. He will be running this show. Okay. Yeah, I think we're going to get some stuff from him. He's been active here lately. And I think, yeah, with him saying that he's been writing with actors in mind, I mean, that means he is writing. He's working on this stuff. He's got actors in mind. I mean, that's big stuff, really. He packed into a couple sentences there. So I think there's stuff to touch on. So I'm really excited for what that's.
Do you think that announcing a 4th feature film on a big stage like this is too much for Star Wars right now, given the track record with getting feature films off the ground over the last 5 years.
It does feel risky. It feels maybe unwise. Like, I think we should maybe prove that we can get one off the ground and in theaters before we're announcing a fourth film that is in the works. I don't think that would go over well with me. I'd take it. I want more Star Wars, but let's prove we can do one before we promise you 10. So
I mean, technically,
where I
it'd be fifth, right? Because
I
we
do
got.
think so. It's somewhere in there.
I mean, it would be like seventh, but
yeah.
first,
I guess
what I mean
it
is
would
that
be
they announced
Mando
3
and
at
Grogu
Celebration
movie.
23. They announced
Yes.
Mando and Grogu this year, so that was the
Yes.
fourth.
I
And this would be the
forgot
fifth. And they also have Lando and Taikas lurking in the background somewhere.
Right.
So
yeah.
yes, but so I feel like that too much to have, given the track record of films.
Yes,
We're
yes, it
already
is.
talking about Mando and Grogu, or sorry, Rey's movie getting delayed possibly, and now we're gonna have Sean Levy come, and we're gonna put another face to a name publicly. I worry about that. As exciting as it would be if it's legit, like that's gonna be exciting. And that brings us to the Lando movie, which is my jaw will hit the floor if we get anything about the Lando movie. I've said for like 2 years now, I don't think this project is ever going to happen. I just think it's going to be like some of the others that have come and gone, and we're never going to, sadly, see this get the light of day. And I know this is one that a lot of people would really want to see, and see Donald Glover come back as Lando, and possibly get more to, Alden as Han, and seeing, Chewbacca again, and possibly like Kira and these other characters from Solo. It just feels so messy from a series to now a movie. We've heard nothing about really anything to do with this. I feel like that's been substantive in years. I just feel like this is going to come and go. It's going to be, we're going to try. They're going to give us all these other movies. And then we're just going to hopefully forget that this ever happened. Do you think there's any possible chance that there's something about Lando that's said this weekend?
Who?
Anyone?
Zero.
Less than zero, right?
Yeah.
It's less than zero. And that sucks.
It does. I don't know about this weekend, but I mean, I do know we've heard Donald and Stephen Glover are working together on it, and how very hurt that the previous writer was, that he was pretty deep into development and got canned and taken off the project. So there hasn't been great stuff surrounding it. I will say I mean, you've already said, I would love to see what this would be and turn out. I love Lando Calrissian, the character. I've read a lot of him this year. I love him in the movies, so I want it to come to fruition. It just seems like it's shooting itself in the foot every day.
Yeah, really, anything to do with the Star Wars movie slate feels like it's shooting itself in the foot for the most part. Is there anything else before we get out of here from either one of you that you would love to hear about this weekend that makes sense, or that you think we might hear about from a TV and movie side of things? I think we pretty much hit on all the things that we know about. Anyone?
Is there video game news that could possibly come out here?
No,
because Outlaws, maybe they do
I was thinking Jedi 3.
No,
it's too, not with Outlaws coming out. So
yeah,
this month.
No, that's produced by EA, Respawn. That's a different company. They are involved, but they're not going to highlight this at a Disney convention. The celebration next year, yes, for sure, but not Disney, which they're doing only Disney stuff.
Cool.
Not video games.
Non-Star Wars related. I would love to see something Avatar 3 related. I would love to see that, because I love Avatar. And I hope they can go ahead and announce Inside Out 3, 4, 5, and 6. That would be great.
Did you like the second one?
I loved the second one.
Oh.
I like the second one more than the first one.
Oh, jeez.
I've heard a lot of people say that.
Anyways, I did not like the second one.
You didn't like the second one?
No.
Oh, so I let me get, I want to get like we can get into this just because I love Inside Out. And my
I
first
love the
day of
first one.
school.
Like the first one might be my favorite Pixar
Oh,
movie. Like
the first one's amazing. I liked the second one more, and I loved it so much that my welcome back to school presentation for like the second day of school for my class is Inside Out 2 themed, and they have to do a whole bunch of stuff with the movie. It's gonna be funny. They're gonna hate me, but love me at the same time. Here's what I loved about it is because as someone it was a lot of the sports side of it and like the pressure that you put on yourself to um do certain things and not even I think the learning about like the understanding of anxiety through the lens of like her as a kid, but also the emotions, learning about, like what's healthy anxiety and then what is like chronic anxiety. And I think about growing up and being as into like sports as I was, and like basketball was like everything to me. Like that was my life. And if I had like a bad game or we were getting up to someone, I remember times where I could not function like normally. I would sit in my room and like I would like be shaking a little bit, or I would be so down on myself that I was struggling to even think positively. And so like seeing that like from like in a Pixar like movie type of setting, and now being in a position as an adult working with students like that same age as she is in the movie, and like thinking through some of the like anxiety driven moments like my kids have come up to me with, and like having to help through like panic attacks and things like that. I think just from a personal level, it just hit me like a lot harder, like just at a personal level. So I don't know if I'm not saying that makes this film better than the first film, like as a film, but in terms of like the personal like connection I felt to it, it just felt much more personal.
And I know my
Anyway.
nephew really gravitated toward Inside Out 2 because it kind of helps him communicate his emotions better. So like, yeah, I also enjoyed it myself, but like, yeah,
Luke's
I
nephew
mean,
he's
came to
loved it
stay
as
with him
well.
over the summer for like the first time, and so all I've been hearing is Luke's telling like stories of his nephew just rampaging through Indianapolis this summer.
I understand the personal connection argument. I just thought that the first act was interesting. The world building aspect of it, I found it interesting. I found the panic attack of the third act interesting as well, like well executed on its own. But the second act, which is the majority of the movie, was a repeat of the first one and felt so unoriginal that it just drove me bananas. And I thought that even though it was important to get the panic attack, the anxiety stuff right, they didn't like it felt surface level. Like they didn't go
Right.
actually as deep as they could have gone, even for a kids movie.
Okay.
And
That makes sense. That makes sense.
And also, they sidelined every single other character. Like there are like 4 or 5 new emotions that were just completely ignored.
It's pretty much just a pure like it's anxiety and joy. Like it's
basically. And I get that the first one also highlights joy the most, and maybe you don't get to learn as much about fear or disgust. Is it disgust?
That was one of the new ones.
Disgust is one of the new ones.
What's the green one? What's the
envy?
Envy.
Oh, was it? Okay, whatever. You get what I mean. Like maybe fear wasn't as or rage or like
anger
these were highlighted, but and joy was like the most, and maybe sadness as well. But like if you have like 9 main characters and only 2 are highlighted, like that's a problem to me. And yeah, I just found it like very surface level in for all it tried to achieve, like basically trying to sum up a person as a view of I'm a good person, like felt very simplistic. And I get that that's the whole arc, but it still like felt very simplistic throughout the movie. And
it kind of reminds me of like to bring it back to Star Wars a little bit, I guess is like Rogue One. I feel like has this amazing like third act, like
Yeah,
it closes, and I really love how that movie starts, but the middle of that movie just feels like
it's
way
horrible.
too drawn out and just
Yeah,
slow and boring. But it closes so well. I think that's what we
You guys
remember.
are
yeah,
sounding like
like
ennui right now.
the tentacle porn could be stripped out of the movie and we'd be fine.
So thanks for hopping in with us tonight on Star Wars Newsnet Live. Check out Star Wars Newsnet for all of your Star Wars news for literally everything. We cover it all. Miguel has a Sunday piece called Galaxy, Another Week in a Galaxy Far, Far Away, where he kind of does a little look back on everything from the week in Star Wars and focuses on and highlights a singular issue that he wants to talk about that week. You can catch Luke and I every Saturday on the Star Wars Timeline show, where we go through the entire Star Wars canon timeline. Right now, we are in Young Jedi Adventures. We recorded our Light of the Jedi pod last week, which will come out in a couple months when we get through there. But we're going through the entire timeline, every single project. It's a lot, like honestly, like it's a lot, but it's fun. It's fun. You can also find me every Monday on the Star Wars podcast, Star Wars Newsnet Monday podcast. I'm not sure what we're gonna do this Monday. We're gonna do something D23 related. I'm not sure if Luke's gonna hop on with me or if we're just gonna do like a little mailbag session on Monday, depending on if we have time. But you can always find us on Mondays and then Thursday nights here on the live show and Saturdays for the timeline show. Jay's not here, but because we love Jay, I'll go ahead and tell you guys, if you're not used to Star Wars Newsnet, you haven't met Jay, but Jay is someone who's on here regularly and is one of our lead writers at Star Wars Newsnet. And he also has his own YouTube channel called Good Games Dude, where he breaks down a lot of, popular video games and does a lot of really cool videos there. So go ahead and make sure that you subscribe to him. But subscribe to our channel, like us here. You can find us on Apple and Spotify. I'll try to get the audio of this down as soon as possible. We will see you all next time. Luke, Miguel, thanks for hopping on. Had a fun time this evening. For Light and Life, everyone, remember that we are what, Luke?
All the Republic.